We are officially almost through spooky season, which is quite upsetting, but before it ends, I wanted to make this tutorial for you. Today I will show you how to make these light up jack-o'-lantern earrings. This is the first time I have made light up earrings and it was quite hard to figure out. Last year I made hollow jack-o'-lantern earrings and I did want them to light up, but at the time I could not figure out how to do it. The lights I ordered were way too big and I made the mistake of ordering way too many instead of just a small amount of lights to test them out first. So this here, I actually figured it out and I'm going to share it with you. This is also a great tutorial if you want to learn how to make hollow earrings or smaller hollow jack-o'-lantern earrings that don't light up. If you don't know me, my name's Brianka. I'm a polymer clay and resin artist and I run my art business from home. I make a lot of nature-inspired pieces and also I love the content creation part behind everything that I do. It's really helped me grow my business and it's created another source of income for me as well. I have been posting on social media since I started about 2.5 years ago and now making longer videos for YouTube so I can share any of my knowledge or experience with you. Now let's make the jack-o'-lantern earrings. You will need polymer clay. I'm using Sculpey Primo and Sculpey Soufflé in pumpkin, canary, cowboy, igloo, poppyseed, jade, and Spanish olive. A needlepoint tool, small and large ballpoint tools, flat silicone brush, and an X-Acto knife. Flexible clay cutter, 2 circle clay cutters, clay bake adhesive, mini battery-powered LED lights, a rotary tool with sander, protective mask and goggles, gel super glue, alcohol ink, paper towel, aluminum foil, 2-inch head pins, 1-step looper, round nose and needle nose pliers, earring hooks, acrylic roller or clay pasta machine, and scissors. I start by making the crutch for the pumpkin. The clay will be wrapped around these, making the pumpkins hollow. Cut out squares of paper towel and aluminum foil. For this particular project, the paper towel is cut to 5.5 by 6 inches and the foil is 3 inches by 3 inches. Take a square of paper towel and scrunch it up into a ball. Tightly wrap the aluminum foil around it. Make sure you are ending up with compact balls. Loose balls simply will not do. Double check that your ball is going to be the right size for the lights. You'll want a little bit of wiggle room. You could also make a smaller version for small non-light up jack-o'-lanterns. Next, mix your clay, and guess what? It turns out I actually care about you all enough to put in the work and figure out some color recipes instead of just eyeballing it. Here are our 3 colors, green for the stem and orange and yellow for the pumpkin. Pause here or check the description for the recipes. You're welcome. Roll out the yellow and orange to a thickness of about 5 millimeters. Use the larger 1¼ inch clay cutter to cut out enough circles for however many pumpkins you're making. Stack a yellow and orange circle, pinch the yellow circle's edge inwards, and then equally squish the pancake until you have a circle about 2 inches in diameter. Find your balls and gently wrap your squished clay circle around it with yellow on the inside. Slowly squish the clay on the top inwards, closing up the sphere. Keep in mind you're trying to keep the clay's thickness pretty even around the whole ball, otherwise light could shine out unevenly or the shape could be weak. While I am forming this ball, I just want to say that switching to longer form videos is so jarring when you're used to making 30-second videos. Like I want to cut so much stuff out. So sometimes the videos on here might seem very fast paced, and then other times I feel like I'm going too fast, so maybe they're too slow. I don't know. Let me know how the pacing of this felt. Roll the ball in your palms to remove any lines and smooth out the surface. Apply light pressure to avoid warping the shape. If you have warm hands, this step should be pretty quick. If you are constantly shocking people with how ice cold your hands are like me, it might take a minute. Warmer hands equals softer clay, which can also be a frustration. Okay, it is now time to form the pumpkins. You will need your needlepoint and large ballpoint tool. Make an indent with the ballpoint tool in the spot you want to be the top of the pumpkin. Use the needlepoint tool to mark your pumpkin lines and then press the needle into the pumpkin to form the lines going from the top to the bottom. Applying lighter pressure, add in 2 to 3 shorter lines in between each of the main lines. Add these to the top and the bottom. These are the detail lines to make the pumpkin look plump and pumpkin-y. Once all the detail is added, I like to go over the main lines again just to make sure they're extra sharp. Press the smaller half-inch circle cutter into the middle of the top to create a guide for cutting later. Poke a hole into the top all the way through to the aluminum. This is where your head pin will later go, but it is also to let out any air while baking. If you don't, they will likely come out with bubbles and bulges from hot air being trapped inside. I learned this the hard way last year. Remove any dust or unwanted fingerprints with a cotton swab and rubbing alcohol. If you're using the same polymer clay as me, bake them at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes or whatever directions are on the polymer clay you are using. I like to open up my oven to let them cool for a while and then come back later to get them. It is easiest to do this next step when they are slightly warm. Using your X-Acto knife, cut a zigzag circle into the top. Make sure you don't cut too close to the marked circle. Pop off the top and gut your pumpkin using the needle nose pliers. So you're probably thinking, can I reuse the aluminum foil and paper towel? I mean, that's what I thought when I first did it, because I was like, people on the internet are going to hate me, and I'm also going to feel guilty that I used all this paper towel and aluminum foil. Well, I am keeping all of it, and I'm going to use it for a paper mache project and probably make a really big jack-o'-lantern head for Halloween to wear on my head. Get creative. You can definitely reuse it. The aluminum foil, on the other hand, I don't know. I haven't thought of anything yet. Tell me if you have an idea. I also had some people recommend using those like packing peanuts that can dissolve in water. And I think it's a great idea, but I really like the natural texture the aluminum foil gives the pumpkin inside. It makes it look more realistic. Right after gutting all the pumpkins, the bowl jumped off of my desk and spilled the guts. And I just want you to know this is not a rare occasion for me. This is everyday life. This is just who I am. Now that your pumpkins are gutted, it is time to carve out the faces. I am making little vampire pumpkins for mine. I do freehand this, but you can absolutely draw the face first if that feels more comfortable. Move very slowly and away from your hand if you are new to using X-Acto knives. I have stabbed my finger with an X-Acto knife before. I do not recommend it. It got infected. It looked like I had a pimple on the tip of my finger. It was awful. And if that does happen to you, please go to the doctor, because I finally did, and she was like, oh yeah, it's good you came in, because it's either these antibiotics or we would eventually have to cut your finger off. You may also notice that your hand is starting to feel very worn out the more and more of these you do. You are working with a very small pumpkin and you're going to be gripping it really tightly, so take breaks for your hand. Next, we will add the stem, head pin, vine, and glue the top back on. Condition and roll out the green clay to a good thickness for the stem. Cut each stem to be about 1/2 inch long. Add a small dab of clay bake adhesive to the top. Use your finger to hold down that top cutout section so that it's not popping out every time. Push the stem onto the top and use a smaller ballpoint tool to press the bottom of the stem into the pumpkin, securely adhering it and adding detail. Pinch the top of the stem into a slight point and add lines with the needle tool. Twist the stem, bend the top over, and trim off the excess so it looks like it was cut from the vine. Next, we're adding the head pin. I use the needle tool to poke around and find that hole we made earlier. Once I have it marked, I push the head pin through the bottom. We can now add the top back on. So add a generous amount of clay bake adhesive onto the inside of the pumpkin where you cut the top off. Place the top back on and press down firmly. Add a small dab of clay bake adhesive to the side of the stem that you are adding the vine to. Roll out a thin string of clay and place it on the stem, pushing the bottom down with the ballpoint tool. Wrap the vine around the head pin as many times as you would like. I do it twice. Gently press on the side of the vine to make sure it adheres with the clay bake adhesive, and then bake the jack-o'-lanterns at 275 degrees Fahrenheit for 30 minutes again. If you're making non-light up jack-o'-lanterns, this is where you would stop, loop your head pin, and add the earring hooks. But since we are making light up earrings, we now need to add the supports for the lights. Now you will finally cut along that circle that we marked in the beginning. Cut out any excess clay that is angling in on the inside. carefully cut off the extra clay on the underside of the stem. We want this part to be thin and flat. Roll out a slab of yellow clay to a thickness of about 2 millimeters. Cut out sections of clay that are about 1/4 by 3/4 of an inch. Cut some smaller squares to roll into balls. You will need the flat silicone brush, needle tool, and clay bake adhesive. Apply clay bake adhesive onto the inside of the pumpkin on each side. Press the end of one of the rectangles of yellow clay into the pumpkin onto the adhesive. Add a ball on top of the part you pressed in. Partially press down the ball with the silicone brush. Flip the other end of the rectangle into the pumpkin. Press the fold down. Repeat this on the opposite side. If you don't get this right the first time, don't worry. It takes a moment to figure out. The extra ball of clay is something I didn't have in my first draft of these. It adds extra support to the clay so that it doesn't rip when you are unscrewing and screwing in the lights to turn them on and off. Spread some clay bake adhesive onto the bottom of the stem circle. Squish a ball and place it onto the adhesive. Press onto a flat surface and cut off any excess. Keep the stems and pumpkins by each other so you don't forget which stem goes with which pumpkin. I added in this macro view showing how I add in the supports. Check to make sure the supports line up with the size of the light. Put those back in the oven one more time for another 30 minutes at 275 degrees Fahrenheit. While those bake, let's take a look at the LED lights. These ones I found have 4 different parts to them, making the battery and LED replaceable. The small piece of paper blocks the batteries from turning on the light. Once it is removed, the light is turned on by screwing the top completely on and turned off by slightly unscrewing it. Or you can add in that piece of paper again. I wanted to make the lights an orange hue, so I colored the LED light cover with alcohol ink. This one is from Ranger and it's in the color Valencia. I used the flat end of a toothpick to apply the color and then let it dry. Okay, we are on to the final steps. So you'll need your rotary tool with the sander attachment and put on a mask for any dust, or you can use a respirator. You just want to make sure you have a really good filter because any tiny dust particles can eventually kill you. Okay? Protect your lungs because I don't think you can replace them as far as I know. And also protect your eyeballs. Oh. Sand the top of the light, removing the thin layer of metal and scratching up the plastic. Sand the underside of the stem circle and sand the surface of the inside pumpkin light supports to make them rough. Add a small dab of the gel super glue to the top of the light. Place the stem onto the light so that the surfaces line up evenly. Press and hold together for 20 to 30 seconds. Remove the paper from the light and screw the top on completely. Sand each side of the light that will match up with the supports in the pumpkin. This will be the side that the stem is bent away from and the side it is bent towards. We are sanding the surfaces before gluing them together to create a stronger bond. Add a dab of gel super glue halfway down each support. If you apply it too far up, the top will also be glued in, making it impossible to replace batteries or turn it on and off. Slide in the light that is now attached to the stem. Line it up with the pumpkin so that the lines all match up. Use the needle tool to press each support onto the light for 20 seconds. Use the one-step looper, aka one of the best jewelry making tools ever, to cut and loop the head pin. You can also use a wire cutter and needle nose pliers if you don't have this fun tool, but you should get it because it's really cool. Make sure the head pin is able to twist around so that you can adjust the direction of the hook. I will show you what I mean in a moment. Slightly pry open the loop, add the hook, and close it back up. Alright, the light up jack-o'-lantern earrings are complete. The top stem can screw all the way off to replace the batteries. The LED light is still loose, so it can come out. If it isn't sitting flat in the light compartment, give the jack-o'-lantern a few taps underneath. Fully screw on the top to turn it on and slightly unscrew it to turn it off. Pinch and turn the loop above the stem to adjust the hook's position. And now, the final reveal.